Most of us have a few plants in our patio or balcony, and quite many in our backyard. And we admire their beauty, and we are passionate about our plants. Then what's your criteria when you choose plants for your backyard? What makes you choose certain plants over another? Is that the pretty look of the plant or their benefits for the ecosystem? Well, we all want pretty flowers around the house, but when some plants are beneficial for the ecosystem, we would love to have them too, right? But somehow it seems to be a matter of choosing one over another, like a beauty over benefit or benefit over beauty. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can have both beauty and benefit when you choose the right group of plants, the native plant. Then what are native plants? And are there non-native plants too? Yes. Simply put in, native plants are the plants that are indigenous to a region and grow naturally outside. And non-native plants are the plants that are brought in from other regions or other countries. And most of our garden ornamental plants belong to this non-native plant group. Then who am I to have a say about plants? I'm not a botanist. I'm a botanical artist who paints flowers. When I first moved to a suburban neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois, from South Korea 2 decades ago, I picked up a new hobby, flower painting, and got excited about the idea of exploring new plants in prairies and woodlands. But my excitement turned into disappointment when I discovered that most home gardens and backyards were full of plants from other parts of the world, the non-native plants, instead of native wildflowers in woodland and prairies. To my fresh eyes as an immigrant, these flowers in these regions, like trilliums and jack-in-the-pulpits and such, are so beautiful, but somehow people do not appreciate their beauty, or they don't even know their existence. So, as my painting skills got better, I was determined to paint them and show my paintings wherever possible to bring awareness to the native plants and their benefits for the ecosystem. So, the tradition of botanical art that describes plants in a scientific and artistic way, I add ecological context to my paintings to emphasize the role of native plants in their habitat. And through my exhibitions in the past, I had conversation with quite many people and learned that most people choose plants for decorative purposes. And they prefer non-native plants because they believe non-native ornamental plants are prettier than native plants. Well, first off, I want to debunk that notion. As an artist, when I choose my plant subject, the first element I look for is the beauty of the plant. So I can create a visually attractive artwork that will draw people's attention first. Then I can talk about something around it, such as pollinators or ecological values and such. And when a plant doesn't appeal to me aesthetically, I don't get excited at all to paint it. And by far, none of the native plants have failed to pass my plant beauty standard, which is pretty high, by the way. And let me show you some samples of my paintings. These are all native plants, and they are colorful, they're elegant, and intricately designed, and every single of them has its own unique characteristics. And you can certainly decorate your backyard with gorgeous colors and shapes from spring to fall, and their structural beauty in winter. And once you get to know about them, you will be in trouble because it's really tough to choose just a few. Trust me. And all these native flowers deserve to be treated as precious garden plants instead of being pulled out or weeded out. Native plants often misunderstood as weed because they just pop up here and there voluntarily, right? Then why do they pop up when you didn't even plant them? Well, they were here well ahead of us. And their deep roots have been there for thousands of years. And their seeds have been buried somewhere down there. And they just grow back when the conditions are right. So next time, when you're tempted to pull out those little weedy plants, resist. Do not take out those valuable additions to your backyard. And they are the indigenous plant, the native plants. They're the very foundation of the ecosystem that native insects and animals depend on. So instead of pulling them out, we need to plant more of them. More variety of native plants, from little white flowers to mighty trees. And through a long span of time, native plants and insects living in the same habitat have developed unique relationships, which are selective and interdependent. For example, certain flowers require specific pollinators because of their unique shape. And butterflies magically know on what plant they have to lay eggs. And those little caterpillars are picky enough to eat just one type of plant. So, variety of native plants in our backyards are crucial to maintain diverse insect populations, including our pollinators. And now you might wonder if your non-native garden ornamental plants, such as hostas and peonies, can be also part of that habitat because we see bees and butterflies foraging on them. Well, that's a tricky question I hear quite often. Insects use both native and non-native plants to get nectar and pollen, but native plants provide additional benefits, such as host plants to lay eggs, and places to build nests, and food to raise their young. For example, when our backyard have enough native host plants, there will be enough caterpillars for birds to feed their nestlings, meaning without those native plants, bird populations cannot be sustained. And a non-native plant, which is brought in from a different ecosystem, cannot become a host plant for native insect in just one day. Nature just doesn't work like that. And that's why native plants are more beneficial than non-native plants. And on top of all these benefits mentioned by far, native plants serve nature even after the blooming season is over, which I personally believe is poetically beautiful. And their fallen leaves and broken twigs offer shelters for little insects to hide and hibernate in winter. So at the end of the fall, when we clean up our backyard, we should consider keeping a little corner covered with leaves and twigs so that our backyard will be completed as a safe haven for the little critters. And now it's been abundantly clear about the benefits of native plants. Then why should we grow them in our backyard? Can someone just plant them somewhere else, like in natural areas or something? Well, let's look around our urban and suburban neighborhood. There are not a lot of natural areas left. And we don't even know how we can create more of them. Yet, We hear alarming news about a decreasing number of bees and butterflies and birds and such. Is there anything we can do about it? Well, yes, definitely. That's why I am talking about our own backyard. We can do small things in our backyard by planting 10 native plants, or 50 if you have bigger space, or just 5 in pots, in patios and balconies. We don't have to wait for somebody's big decisions. All powers in our own hand. We can do now. We can choose what we want for our own backyard. And we feel empowered when we watch a little patch of our own native plants transforming into a habitat. It's all about different perspectives on how we see our backyard. Is that for ourselves, or is it for nurturing nature? Is that bug damaging my plant, or is my plant feeding that bug? Is my backyard supposed to be a showcase or a habitat for other lives? It's time to rethink the purpose of our backyard. With the right choice of plant, we can transform our backyard into a well-functioning habitat, which might be a small but powerful part of the whole ecosystem. And we individuals have the power to make the right choice for our backyard. But to use that power or not is our choice too.